So what's this battle between ChatGPT versus DeepSeek?
This is really a paining topic.
Is AI will replace developers' jobs?
If you don't have a Google kind of system in place with a lot of compute behind it, and you put a question and then you're waiting for it to load. Imagine.
Is India will also have its own AI model?
See, I'll tell you, reality is the mind shift is already happening.
But can we expect such T hubs or hubs across all tier 2 cities in both Telugu states?
And this is one of the big change where government is recognizing these changes and they are trying to build policy around it.
So what is this concept of Shuhari?
Ideally, they expect you to break rules. The point is now there are graduates, there are postgraduates, and they are trying to choose that as a route.
Hi everyone, వెల్కమ్ బ్యాక్ ఫైర్ టాక్స్ విత్ సూర్య. సో ఈరోజు మన దగ్గర మరో గెస్ట్, వెరీ స్ట్రాంగ్ గెస్ట్. అగైన్ నా ఇంటెంట్ ఏంటంటే ఎస్పెషలీ ఎంటర్ప్రెన్యూర్షిప్లో రియల్ గెస్ట్స్ని తీసుకురావటం. ఐఎమ్ నాట్ డూయింగ్ ఫర్ దీస్ పాడ్కాస్ట్ ఫర్ ఎంటర్టైన్మెంట్ పర్పస్, రాదర్ ఫర్ ఎంటర్ప్రెన్యూర్ పర్పస్. సో ఈరోజు మన దగ్గర శ్రీధర్ శేషాద్రి, ఈయన సీరియల్ ఎంటర్ప్రెన్యూర్, అగైన్ ఎన్ఆర్ఐ, and he's a ex-Meta and ex-EA Sports. He's been in Hyderabad for a couple of days, and we got an opportunity to have a podcast with him in the last day while he was going back to USA. So ఏం నేర్చుకుంటాం ఈ దగ్గర నుంచి? ప్రైమరీగా వెంచర్ క్యాపిటల్ వర్సెస్ వెంచర్ స్టూడియోస్, ఎస్పెషలీ క్యాపిటల్ గురించి ఎక్కువ మాట్లాడతాం. అండ్ ఈయన సబ్జెక్ట్ మ్యాటర్ ఎక్స్పర్ట్ కాబట్టి ఎంటర్ప్రెన్యూర్స్ బిల్డ్ చేసేటప్పుడు మనకు వచ్చే డౌట్స్, ఏదైతే ఒక చిన్న స్టార్టప్ నుంచి ఒక మీడియం సైజ్ స్టార్టప్ తీసుకెళ్ళేటప్పుడు వచ్చే డౌట్స్ ఏదైతే ఉన్నాయో అన్నీ ఈయన క్లారిఫై చేయగలుగుతాడు. సో హోప్ఫుల్లీ దిస్ విల్ హెల్ప్ యూ అండ్ యువర్ ఎంటర్ప్రెన్యూర్షిప్ జర్నీ. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్ శ్రీధర్ గారు. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్ ఫర్ కమింగ్ టు అవర్ పాడ్కాస్ట్ అండ్ ఎస్పెషలీ యువర్ టైట్ స్కెడ్యూల్.
Thanks, Surya. I mean, this is a great opportunity. I feel from the tight schedule that you guys are in and what you are trying to do for the community with these podcasts is really huge. I would love to share the information I have. I hope I do justice for this opportunity that you have given me.
Cool. So our intent is to basically create an awareness to first time founders and entrepreneurs through our channel. So my first question, again, today's topic is really interesting one, especially with your knowledge that you coped up so far. So straight first question. So what's this battle between ChatGPT versus DeepSeek? It's been happening from last couple of days or weeks.
I feel in reality there is no battle. At times we just undermine opportunities that are happening somewhere in parallel universe, and then there are superheroes created out of some of the entities. ChatGPT actually had a very glorious positioning in how they were really building this whole stuff. In reality, silently, larger companies like Meta and Google, they were always working on these models. Yeah. Google really had done wonderful work in 2017 on transformers. GPT, as you know, is based on transformers technology. So the white papers were always available. They knew how to do it. These were very compute extensive at one point of time. And I believe the stars aligned for GPT. Nvidia and other companies enabled a lot of compute power for them, and for something to pull off while you have everyone supporting you, so billions of dollars poured in very quickly. So they built something, and I feel there was a little bit of complacency maybe for the size of startups that we do, but as a mentor, if I have to say, definitely I would look at it from that perspective, where a little complacency at times you get a jolt. Nature does this typically. And see, ideally somewhere in China, if we say was doing this, I still believe we say there's no startup in India doing it. That might not be true. We'll get to hear some very good stories from top institutes where researchers are working on something similar. But interestingly, DeepSeek actually used very less amount of money and resources to build, and they used a very different technique. So ideally there is no real battle. They only outsmarted the ChatGPT ecosystem. They use a technique called distillation, where they train the small models from the larger models. Yeah. So while Meta and all the companies were working very heavily and they tried to make these models with all the knowledge, DeepSeek actually used their models by throwing a lot of questions to it. The smaller models at much cheaper cost learnt pretty quickly. I mean, that's what the whole news is all about. Initially, I wouldn't have been able to answer this a week ago if you would have asked me like what exactly is the thing. But now that the research is out, information is available, basis that I'm sharing it, that DeepSeek ideally outsmarted by using lesser number of resources, around like 5.5 million, while there is billions spent on ChatGPT. I feel that's the whole battle about, but primarily it doesn't stop us there. I mean, this is like they say Sputnik moment of Russia, while there was a space battle at one point of time, like who would launch the satellites and stuff like that. Today, while GPT is being talked about and everybody's super focused about it, it looks like a battle. Eventually, in another couple of years, this will be very normalized. We'll see many foundational models coming out of different countries.
As you mentioned about the foundations of this AI, so let's go back a bit of history on this. We call it as AI evolution. So where is it like what time it's actually started, and like can you elaborate us the foundations of AI?
Absolutely. So I'll use this opportunity to talk about my book. We recently launched a book called AI for Everyone, and I co-authored it along with Sriram, who is another author on that book. We have put all of these questions for the audiences in very simple language. Coming back to your question on when did it start, actually early 40s we already had scientists working on it.
1940s.
Yeah. And neural network has been part of the theory of engineering that people generally study, especially in computer science and electronics communication. For years it has been there. The only difference is while we did not have compute available, I mean, while you would have actually started with computers back in say 97, 98, while you had access to those early machines in India as well, you would have seen that it was only 32 MB storage, not even RAM. And we would talk about 16 MB, 32 MB kind of as a very good configuration ideally from storage perspective. And we were heavily looking at floppies to store. Absolutely. So, I mean, like people who wouldn't have seen that, there would be a generation which will watch this, I believe, and that might sound like a little alien to few people. But while we have seen that kind of evolution in this thing, imagine the computer extensive, which is a lot of RAM and storage that you require to process these many files of data or videos. I mean, as of today, while you would process this podcast, there is so much of memory that's needed, and you have such a good set of editing team, and those resources are needed even to get to the quality. It's only possible because of compute. Similarly, for GPUs, where you're only one point of time thinking about GPUs for gaming, how they changed the role from helping people with blockchain consensus mechanism to pulling off these extensive calculations, that became cheaper, accessible. There were more manufacturing units building it, and because of that breakthrough, all of this moment has actually been created. So that whole foundation actually started somewhere around 1940s, and a lot of research work actually happened around that time. And as of today, what we see more than research, it is the power of compute, resources available at much lower price.
So
accessible.
when we talk about compute in AI or LLMs, right? So large language models. So we often hear the inference, right? So for our audience, in a very layman language, what is mean by this inference and how it really actually works in the backend? I've seen that even that's one of kind of a parameter to compete or to see what's the best between the DeepSeek versus ChatGPT.
Absolutely, I'll keep it in very simple mechanics. So transformer as a technology, I'll get to the inference part, but first let's understand where it starts. So while you have a lot of data, you want to figure out sequence and a pattern between how things are related to each other. So if I give you say 10 files, or maybe even if you do this with a 2-year, 3-year-old kid, that you put orange, red, yellow, green, and then their brain starts classifying, figuring out some mechanics. Not necessarily everyone thinks similarly. So maybe some kids would actually put the alphabets together, some kids would actually put colors together, some logic they will start using, basis where their knowledge was. So transformers are kind of mechanics where they try to sequence all of this information, and then they make a logic of how to retrieve and put it into a sequence. So sequencing one, like what it is, and then sequencing it in a context. So while all of this is being done, ultimately you have to inference something out of it. So if you are asking a question, the system has understood it in certain format, and how quickly that inferencing is happening. So the first part where you need a lot of GPU is to train with putting all of this information. So the data models are created. And then once you have this ready, the inferencing mechanism is like much more lighter ideally. It doesn't need that much of compute yet. It has to process your information if the volumes are high, and it has to like go and check through billions of records. I mean, imagine the old school search engine.
Yeah.
If you don't have a Google kind of system in place with a lot of compute behind it, and you put a question and then you're waiting for it to load. Imagine, I mean, where it's going, checking every record and then bringing something for you. So that's where the inference compute really is important. How they have used the distillation technique, that has brought down the compute like even much more lower. So you don't need that much of compute also to get the inferences out. So that's like, I don't want to go into too much of technicalities, but again, that's the whole.
Because see, when I started reading about your book, again, the fundamentals of that book is also very clear that any common man can easily understand these terms, right? So so can you elaborate me a bit that the difference between the LLM and this terminology that we always hear, right? The LLM versus big data versus the machine learning. So yeah.
I'll start with something with machine learning. Machine learning, if you have to take example, definitely there is supervised, unsupervised, many mechanics around it. Without going into those details, I would still request go and read the book once if you really are interested in this topic. But machine learning ideally was always around. I mean, like back in 2010, 11, I actually got exposed to the whole thing while I was one of the founding team members for Facebook. I got to work with some folks coming from Stanford team, and they gave me introduction to classification. As I was explaining you classification a bit ago, where a 2-year-old, 3-year-old kid would be playing with toys, and then they will classify things in certain logic. So that is what generally machine learning really enables, which is there is historic data. If there is data available, you're using some mathematical formulas and equations. While you pour this data into that, the existing equations will actually change. So if you have studied mathematics as your 10th or 11th, like a high school kid, if you have gone through that, what you would have really understood is, let's assume there is a straight line. So there is a mathematical equation for a straight line. Let's say y is equal to mx plus c. So while you put the value for x, the value of y comes out, and you put those two values, the straight line will actually start coming out. So you can clearly see that's the thing. So while you have y and x, these are variables. Let's assume I know relationship between pressure and temperature. So if you are increasing pressure, what's the impact on say temperature? If you're increasing temperature, what is the impact on pressure? If I use that equation and I start filling this is a model. Basically, when you pour data, specific data for a particular plant, a particular manufacturing plant has these two variables. So for XYZ company, when they are trying to create a model for their data, their circumstances, when you put this information into an equation, outcomes will come out. That is a model. Now whenever you use this model, you can predict historically at this temperature my machine breaks, at this temperature the pressure goes high, things like this you can figure out. Now absolutely. So there's ABC company, it will have different equation, same equation, different model, because their data will give you another model. So coming back quickly to explain, machine learning is a statistical mechanics where you can actually use the quant models or statistics, use different formulas and make predictions. There might be a human intervention to train simply, or there might be systems where you don't need human intervention. You can let the system actually learn on its own gradually, it will make mistakes and you can fix it. While coming to advanced concepts, say data, big data. Big data is a mechanism where you are actually pooling in a lot of, they were structured and unstructured data sets earlier. So the structured data ideally is something where you see SQL data form, or you are seeing Excel sheet, things like those where data is structured in a columnar form or rows format, things like those. And if you talk about unstructured data, the moment social media actually became a big thing in 2010-11 time frame. So images were coming out in big volumes, videos were coming out in big volumes. We couldn't know how to store them, how do you retrieve them, how do you find relationship between them. So at that stage, a decade ago, big data, I mean Yahoo was one of the companies, Google was one of the companies, then Facebook jumped into it. A lot of these companies worked and they built a lot of open source systems. So they created big data, a mechanism where you can store and retrieve data in structured and unstructured format. That's about big data. And lastly, you asked about LLM. LLM are large language model where you write a particular piece of code which uses GPT kind of technology in the backend, and it will actually enable that you write something in a human language form and it starts retrieving information, and that too very quickly. So I mean that's what I can summarize it in a very simple
manner.
format.
So again, this would be a bit of a debatable question, and it's very common question nowadays that most of the youngsters were hearing and listening. So is all these developers jobs will be in the risk at this stage? If yes, how accurate those estimations in maybe next 3-4 years?
So I still feel there is advantage at least for 2-3 years for the folks in India or maybe developing nations, and especially we'll still have a little more advantage in tier 2 and tier 3 cities of India. The price points for building the technology out of India is still very cheap. So while you deploy a lot of GPTs and other accurate mechanics, if we are able to deliver quality output as developers, we can still compete with GPT up to a point of time in future. Will we lose jobs? No, I think the way GCCs, which are companies like say Facebook, Amazon, Google, any good company, Eli Lilly, anyone, they would actually like to have a knowledge center or a development center or a business processing center somewhere in outsource location. Luckily, we do have many of them in Hyderabad and in India. And I'm seeing a trend where many of these large companies which want to move towards AI first approach, for the cost benefit that we have in India and the talent benefit that we have in India, they prefer to have new jobs, new roles created in India. So we'll see a lot of good work for prompt engineering coming to India. And the best thing about Indian talent is the guys and girls, they pick up pretty quickly what's the trend. So the moment we get to see new trends evolving, our guys would learn
Immediately.
that, and we are ready for
We've
it.
seen that same thing for Web3 when it was started post-COVID, and we were early adopters of that, and then AI again came in picture. So with that, I have a very interesting statistics. So as one of really big firm reports suggest that by 2030 around 41% of workspace culture or the employment will be removed from these companies. Can we consider this report as like as accurate as possible? Like, do you really think these are estimated numbers, but is it really really going to impact us?
See, I feel forecasts might be true in some context, but again, let's reflect back onto the parallel worlds. Like, because you understand Web3 so well, I can just take this example. We have seen Web 1, which is pure internet kind of play, and the value eventually came by some Web 2 systems eventually on it, and then we saw like core banking kind of systems actually coming onto Web 2, which is the real value. It's not just that you're giving people booking options of tickets or something, but again you're saying now the whole core fundamental industry is working on this system. But did Web 1 stop? No. There were mainframe systems, there are COBOL based systems which are still running while we are talking about Web 3. Similarly, while Web 2 evolves, or we see Web 3 along with AR, XR, VR, new experiences, more variables coming into play, AI becoming more prominent, it comes with its own cost. At least a decade's time we will have to transit into, though it's happening very fast, it's happening now. We have to learn now. We have to use this next 2 to 3 years time to learn and be ready.
So when we started our careers in 2000, 11, 12, that time we do have this momentum in both Telugu states, is that most of the even governments were pushed that we do have a lot of engineering colleges all of a sudden like popped up everywhere, due to government support also. And then there is this boost because the buzz was happened because the IT was about to kickstart that time, and that's right. When companies were needed more and more people, we are happy to produce more youngsters, right? So but post after a decade, and we still see that same mindset of having more and more colleges, and more graduates coming out. Even though all these youngsters know what's going on and what's happening in Web3 space and especially the AI space, they know that the risks also. So what do you really suggest for the youngsters to look into it? Let's say if they're studying at second year, so they know that in next 2 years they'll have to come out and look for a job, and in next 2 years it'll be more wild comparatively now. So what do you suggest for them?
If I look at the hiring experience that I had as a manager in corporate at different levels, the thing that has always worked is people need to have right attitude and a mindset to learn things. So the moment somebody is actually learning and they feel like they have arrived, or maybe they have taken a degree and degree is good enough, it would not really help. Degree is only a mechanics where with a discipline you know how to solve for any big challenge. Skill definitely is the primary thing, and skill will only come out while we are into that mindset of catching up to the trend, understanding what's happening, and being a learner. So learner for life is something that we have to become, irrespective of if you're trying to crack UPSC or government exams, or you want to be a bank officer, anything of that sort. Everything needs AI. So the sooner they get started on to at least critical thinking of why AI, what AI is, what Web3 is, they start learning tools to do that. I think that will be the perfect thing to do right now.
So when it comes to this degrees, right? So what do you suggest as a normal degree is enough to get a good placement this year onwards?
See, I'll tell you, reality is the mind shift is already happening. People are not really asking for degrees also with startups.
Fortunately or unfortunately, in colleges they were not aware of it, right?
No, I get that. I absolutely get that. I still feel I have total respect. I don't want people to become a college dropout at any point of time. So there is a rigor. What you go back and tell industry or anyone in the world is that I have followed discipline, I have followed rigor. That is what schooling and degree is for. I mean, you can otherwise study at home, you can do homeschooling, all of that is great. But if you do these routes, you take these routes, practically you're missing on networking opportunity to learn. So bigger skills definitely are beyond degree, but your relationship building at college, that's very critical, I feel, because you want to be an entrepreneur tomorrow, you want to find a job, you need to learn to make friends. So I think because of AI, Web3 and all the extreme technology push, the human angle will come back, and for which people have to now start thinking about ideally. The real challenge today is like, if you cannot pick up your phone and call your friends from college to seek help, and that's where if we are heading towards, there is a bigger challenge to deal with as humans. And I feel to your question of whether degrees are important, they are very important. To your question of somebody who is in college, what they should do right now, I would say go network, go to events, meet right people, figure out what's the new trend, be ready for the new trend, learn. I think that's the most critical thing at this.
So I often heard recently that there is this concept called again a concept based learning versus traditional based learning, right? So think of like I have a 4 years of degree versus 4 years of degree plus a concept based learning with maybe a mentor or maybe a startup, maybe virtual. Nowadays we don't need to be there in the office also. So and we've seen the trend started especially APAC region like Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, and India is maybe picking up, especially in big colleges. It's there, IIT kind of colleges is already there because they form kind of a groups and associations and all that stuff. But what do you suggest for colleges who doesn't have such networking or these kind of concept based learnings?
See, I would suggest one thing to everyone, that is, colleges, governments, they are not insurance for us. We were not born basis that somebody or something like that will take care of us. Okay. The reality is, while we pay and we try to get some structured education format from them and they are supporting us, we all have to come out of that mindset. People who are successful, look at everyone who is studying in these top institutes or irrespective of any institute. The pedigree is not coming from an institute because of the institute alone. That's a mindset that we have. People with certain mindset, they easily crack IITs. People with certain mindset, they easily crack Ivy Leagues or maybe government colleges, whatever we would call it in different times of the age. But as of now, it's only if you are successful today, it's not because of only your education in college, it's because of your mindset. You have got into that mindset that I want to figure it out. I want to deep dive. How do I get it? So the want has to become an outcome for which you and I are working hard. So institutes will only help you up to a point. You need to build your own.
So, but does that also need to change the existing traditional, course curriculum that we do have, right, to match with the skills that are required for companies or startups?
I would say one thing, that the initiatives or policies should shift a little bit from government's end. Institutes have to become a little open-minded in terms of they are trying to, but again they follow policies or guidelines given by government. If government can actually bring in a little more set of policies around mind shift, around communities or people who have exposure, they coming and they training other folks, I think that will be of a lot of value for us to bring that change that we are ideally looking at.
So this will also be a little bit of debatable question in the industry. We often heard that skills versus degree, right? Which one do you suggest for a youngster?
So I strongly believe degrees have their own importance for sure. You go to colleges, you have a good network of people, you make friends. That's very critical. Unfortunately, we don't emphasize too much on that while people go and study in colleges. Degrees get you into kind of discipline, that's also critical. But I feel like while all of this is important, on a general level, with the kind of mindset people come, skill is definitely very critical at this point of time. But again, the moment we say skill, and governments also talk about skill and policy, I feel it's mistaken as blue collar job, not white collar job, where we think, oh, plumbing or something else is.
It's like everyone has to become a.
Yeah, either it is that way. I mean, like, so we are either thinking from that perspective too. While all of this is being talked about in terms of a mind shift that I was also talking about earlier, which is what is that shift? That shift is actually about how do we survive in this world, which is very practical.
Yeah.
And skills are not just the skills of computers, as if you look at everything else, like when you say startup, unfortunately what comes to our mind is IT. It could be anything else, could be aquaculture, could be processed food or something else. And ideally in such a scenario, IT is only an enabler.
Yeah.
So I feel skills for making that kind of stuff, skills for doing anything else in industry like food processing industry or could be sports industry. I think skills are very important, technically speaking, to be successful in life. Practically speaking, these are filtering mechanisms. While you look at job or you look at some criterias to meet certain percentages or having certain degrees to be somewhere, while the population is very huge and you have to do filtering, you have to use certain logic because you cannot really go further ahead.
But that's the question, right? So so the youngsters was basically followed by the friends or the family suggestions most of the time, possibly friends. So మా టైంలో కూడా మా ఫ్రెండ్ ఏదైనా కాలేజ్ జాయిన్ అవుతాం, ఓకే అదే కాలేజ్లో జాయిన్ అవుదాం, ఏ కోర్స్ తీసుకోండి, లైక్ వీ డోంట్ హ్యావ్ ఎనీ అదర్ థాట్ ఆల్సో బికాస్ యూనో అదే క్లాస్ రూమ్ మాకు కావాలి కాబట్టి సో దాట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్ ఉండేది. బట్ సో అప్పుడు కూడా ఆపర్చునిటీస్ ఉన్నాయి, లైక్ అప్పుడప్పుడే కంపెనీస్ రావడం ఇందాక చెప్పినట్టు. బట్ ఇప్పుడు సిచ్యువేషన్ కొంచెం లైక్ ఆబ్వియస్లీ ఇట్స్ అ ఫ్యాక్ట్, రైట్? అవుట్ ఆఫ్ 100 పీపుల్ హ్యావ్ ఆబ్వియస్లీ మేబీ 1 జాబ్ ఆర్ లెస్ దెన్ 1 జాబ్. సో ఆ మైండ్ సెట్లోంచి బయటకు వచ్చి రావాలి అంటే ఇదర్ వాళ్ళ ఫ్యామిలీలోనే ఎవరన్నా సజెస్ట్ చేసి ఉండాలి, అండ్ దట్ టు push from a dopamine effect that we have in social media, because most of the youngsters spending number of hours in that or countless hours అనాలి. ఇంకా అందులోంచి బయటకు వచ్చి కూడా అంటే ఇట్స్ లైక్ దీస్ ఆర్ లైక్ రైట్ నో బ్లాకర్స్. వాళ్ళకి తెలియకుండానే వాళ్ళకి బ్లాకర్స్ అవి. సరే బయటకు వచ్చిన తర్వాత ఎవరైనా మంచి మెంటర్ దొరకడం కూడా గ్రేట్. ఫర్ పాసిబుల్లీ ఒక మెంటర్ దొరికారు అనుకోండి, లైక్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ లైక్ యువర్స్. సో గెటింగ్ దేర్ వాల్యుబుల్ టైమ్ ఈజ్ ఆల్సో రియలీ ఇంపార్టెంట్. ఇఫ్ వీ గెట్ అన్ ఆపర్చునిటీ టు మీట్ such person like you for 30 minutes of time, that itself can change my career path, to be honest, right? That at early stage career. So but I environment manaki ikkada ఇంకా కల్టివేట్ అయ్యిందని అనే అనిపిస్తుంది. అంటే నాకంటే పర్సనల్గా కనిపించలేదు అనిపిస్తుంది ఇక్కడ వరకు కంపారిటివ్లీ బెంగళూరు ఆర్ మేబీ టైర్ 2 సిటీస్ ఇంకా ఉండకపోవచ్చు ఇంకా. సో హౌ డు యూ సీ సచ్?
We have to go back to the roots of our culture. There is still a social fabric in how we do things in our country. I mean, if you go back to village setup, even tier 2 setup, neighbors care. I mean, even if neighbors will pull your leg for something or they'll do some kind of competition with you, I feel that whole neighborhood is there for you. You take care of them, they take care of you. That mindset is there. And I think people who have come out of these neighborhoods and have become successful, rather than competing or looking for commercial value, that what will I get giving my time to somebody as a mentor, if they actually think about they want to make this country great, we all have to do our part. I mean, that's the only way I believe this will change. If you are successful today and if you start training a few people and you give them guidance, it's not that you will assure job. It's not them. It would be unfair for.
బట్ అగైన్ దట్ మైండ్ సెట్ ఈజ్ ఆల్సో లైక్ దట్ రైట్? కాలేజ్లోంచి బయటకు రాగానే ఎక్కడో ఒక 3 నెలలు 4 నెలలు కోర్స్ చేస్తాం. అప్పుడులో ఉంటే ఉండేది, ఓకే ఒప్పుకుంటాం, ఏదో అప్పుడు ఉన్నాయి కాబట్టి వెళ్ళిపోయేటోళ్ళం. బట్ ఇప్పుడు కోర్స్ అయిపోయిన వెంటనే ఖచ్చితంగా జాబ్ ఉండాలి. అండ్ దెన్ దేర్ ఆర్ సమ్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్స్ క్లైమింగ్ దట్ ఓకే యూ ఫినిష్ దిస్ కోర్స్ విల్ గెట్ యూ 100% ఆఫ్ ప్లేస్మెంట్. లైక్ డూ యూ రియలీ థింక్ దట్ స్టిల్?
No, that will not work out. Ideally, there are not enough of jobs also. Even if you have 500 more GCCs coming to India, large companies will give you operational work which might not be satisfying also after a point. You might be so much more creative. Unfortunately, we are not looking at our strength as an individual. We don't know what our strength is. The moment you go out and then you explore options, so career has these many options. This is what is career. Word career itself is not understood that well by us right now. So I think again there is a role, as you said, of mentors to go out and play. If you and I care for this country, we have to go take out time on weekends. We have to partner. We have to make these small non-profits, and it's additional work. And the moment we do that additional work, it's actually good karma. I feel we'll have to do that for our future generations. If we want our future generations to stay here, it's easy to sit and say at times that why our guys are going out. The best talent has gone to all big companies that we talk about, like all Mang companies. If you look at 30% of their talent is from India. Like all the top brains from IITs, NITs, but whatever institute you call, I mean, they are working for these top companies. And can we justify to have them here in India? Can we give them best opportunities? I mean, answer is yes. If they taste their success, they come back and then they start supporting. I think that's the only way we can get there. So I think definitely there is a role to play for mentors, and I feel we have to get the right balance between them completing the degree. While they are completing their degree, the right skills, exposure is given to them.
సో విత్ దాట్ సైడ్ ద మెంటర్షిప్ అనగా నేను బాగా గుర్తొచ్చి నాకు టీ హబ్ హైదరాబాద్లో ఖచ్చితంగా అక్కడికి వెళ్తే మాత్రం గుడ్ మెంటర్స్ దొరుకుతారని ఒక ప్రాక్టికాలిటీ అయితే ఉంది. దొరుకుతారో లేదు తర్వాత సంగతి అక్కడికి వెళ్ళాక. బట్ డెఫినెట్లీ నెట్వర్కింగ్ ఉంటుంది, యూనో వి మీట్ న్యూ పీపుల్ అండ్ దట్స్ హౌ వీ యూనో యాజ్ యూ రైట్లీ సెడ్ వీ కనెక్ట్ విత్ రైట్ మెంటర్. బట్ కెన్ వీ ఎక్స్పెక్ట్ సచ్ టీ హబ్స్ ఆర్ హబ్స్ across all tier 2 cities and both Telugu?
I mean, that's absolutely a great question. I feel governments are doing their bit. They're trying to mobilize. Because you're a CEO of a company, you know the challenge. Like even if it is a 30 people team or 300 people team, we struggle at times to convey the common vision. The moment common vision is understood by everyone, it becomes common. Your vision becomes common and it's understood by everyone. Then they can act on that. So as a leader, while we have certain leaders in certain position, they are trying to do their best. We have certain template hubs that have evolved. Can we look at private bodies to form their non-profits and to do that? Can we look at certain employees to go out and build their own small groups? Not necessarily everything will be commercially very vibrant, but again, if we start doing that at our level, I believe there's a possibility, and that's where you will have quality mentors coming out, because there is no dimension of real money, and mentor genuinely wants to support and train people and help them. I mean, that's where things will evolve, I feel. So it will happen. Governments are doing it. I see the Telugu states are actually definitely doing it. I see that even many Hindi belt states have now become very proactive. They are taking support from these incubators, and they are also establishing it.
Yeah. So come back to this very interesting question on psychology on students or postgraduates, right? So what I also observed that now they have this social dogma or kind of pressure from both virtual, which is like social media, and also family and friends that okay, you know what, if you complete your graduation and what if you don't get a job again. So basically the question is వాళ్ళు ఆల్రెడీ అందులో ఫిట్ చేసేసారు, యూ హ్యావ్ టు గెట్ ఎ జాబ్. సో అది జాబ్ ఎందుకు రాలేదని అడుగుతున్నారు కానీ లైక్ వాట్స్ యువర్ ఎగ్జాక్ట్ స్కిల్ సెట్, ఎట్లా ఇంప్రూవ్ చేయాలనేది ఆపర్చునిటీ ఎవరికి లేదు. సో అది ఒక రకంగా ప్రెషరే వాళ్ళకి, లైక్ దే రిలీ డోంట్, బికాస్ వాళ్ళకి డైరెక్షనే లేనప్పుడు మనం పుష్ చేసేసి ఒకరేమో సోషల్ మీడియాలో ఓకే ఇంత సక్సెస్ అయ్యారు. సో బికాస్ ఇండియా లవ్స్ టు టాక్ అబౌట్ సక్సెస్ రాదర్ హైడ్ ద ఎంటైర్ ఫెయిల్యూర్స్ ఆఫ్ స్టార్టప్స్ ఆర్ కంపెనీస్, రైట్? సో ఆ ప్రెషర్ కూడా ఉంటుంది వీళ్ళ మీద. సో అది ఎట్లా అంటే లైక్ యాజ్ అ మెంటర్ హౌ డు యూ సీ దట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ మైండ్, బికాస్ వీ ఆల్సో షోకేస్ సర్టెన్ లెవెల్ ఆఫ్ ఎంపతి ఆన్ దెమ్. See, they are also humans at the end of the day. It's not like okay నువ్వు ఖచ్చితంగా ఇదే చేయాలి ఇట్లానే చేయాలి అట్లా కాదు కదా. సో హౌ డు యూ సీ సచ్ ప్రెషర్ టు tackle up?
So I have a different notion at this point of time about being oversensitive and undersensitive thing. We have to again balance, because one side, the future generations, we are trying to give everyone a gold medal. That's also a wrong thing. So if there is a race happening and you don't want anyone to lose and you give everyone a gold medal, they'll not understand how to tackle that pressure in real world life. Interestingly, I'll just give a teaser of the work I'm doing right now. There's one book I'm writing on.
Another book?
Yeah, there's another book I've already started my work on. I call it, right now the title is called Life. It is out of syllabus.
Okay.
So there's no syllabus for life.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to write about these experiences pretty much on that. Hopefully we'll be able to finish it in another 6 months. It should go for publishing. But this is really a paining topic when I especially look at already my own kids, the kind of pressure we were able to take very normally, the way things were in school, and the hardship was never felt like hardship. Things have become too sensitive now. Everything looks, as parenting, the dimension has changed even for us to believe that this is too harsh for kids, or this is not right, or maybe are we too rude for them, are we not empathizing with their problem? Definitely what kind of society we have to build is, if there is unforeseen situation like COVID that happens, which is not created by humans, if we assume for some time, whatever could be the reasons why it started, but it was really very naturally a natural calamity kind of thing for us. When situations like those come, nature doesn't look at like these criteria of like how sensitive you are.
Yes.
So if you are not trained and you are not mentally resilient about coming out of it, I mean, then it's a real problem. So first what we have to fix is again ourselves. I mean, that's why the self-help books and everything help us to stay motivated, because you are working on yourself first. So the kids have to first get into that mind shift of, no, I am thinking right now that my parents will take care, my governments have to create job, my college has to do something for me, they have to get the company. No, that will not. Earlier there was a time where in those last 15 years, especially 10 years, there were hundreds of colleges that were popping up like mushroom, which we were talking about. I feel today the shift is people are actually looking at taking AI as the primary field of their engineering rather than going to the core subjects. And again, the probability is that tomorrow if EVs or something else become, or mechanics or mechatronic becomes popular because of the shift, they might really feel, oh, we studied AI but we are not getting jobs in AI.
Yeah.
Then again you have to go back to your learner attitude of saying, okay, fine, this did not work out, what is in market that I should learn? So as you said, we have to empathize.
Yeah.
But again, if nature has put you into that situation, things have changed drastically.
Yeah.
We have to fight it out and we have to learn. We have to be in that state of mind, for which I believe governments have to make more policies to make student more resilient at that age. Colleges and professors have to become a kind of machinery where that part of life's training also should go to student.
Perfect. So again, all these pushes actually end up with a good finance, right? చేతిలో డబ్బులు ఉంటేనే ఇవన్నీ కనబడవు, లేదంటే పుష్ చేస్తూనే ఉంటారు, సొసైటీ పుష్ చేస్తే, సోషల్ మీడియా పుష్ చేస్తే. సో కమ్ బ్యాక్ ఆన్ యూనో అర్నింగ్ మైండ్ సెట్ వర్సెస్ లెర్నింగ్ మైండ్ సెట్. సో బోత్ రిక్వైర్డ్, రెండు ఉండాలి వాళ్ళకి. బట్ కాలేజ్ టైంలోనే ఇప్పుడు యంగ్స్టర్స్ లైక్ దే స్టార్ట్ దేర్ ఫ్రీలాన్సింగ్ ఆర్ వీవ్ సీన్ దట్ concept called gig economy, right? So what's your thoughts on gig economy, especially even union budget lo kuda specific ga dani gurinchi matladaru. First time I was also hearing government talking about gig economy. When we started freelancing, like no one cares, like it's just a freelance, right? So and that's definitely a good push. So what do you think about that?
No, absolutely, it's a great question, because I keep talking about gig economy generally to people that shift is happening. There's so much thing changing right now. I know I've been using word shift so much, but again, that's the reality. We are in a time where a lot of things are changing, and this is one of the big change where government is recognizing these changes and they are trying to build policy around it.
E-Shram kada adi card?
Yes, E-Shram card, yeah. So under that, which is typically for laborers, if you look at it, no, that's not just labor. The point is, now there are graduates, there are postgraduates, and they are trying to choose that as a route rather than struggling to find a job in an MNC. And that's good. Why I feel, because not one, there is enough of set of jobs directly available through companies. You don't want to leave your home, you want to live in your tier 3 or your farms along with your parents. No pressure. I mean, there is no certain way of living life. I feel like we can choose a certain,
and still can earn
absolutely,
really good.
absolutely. I mean, look at the Zoho model where Mr. Sridhar Bembu has actually done phenomenal work. I mean, we can take that mindset. We have to go into that way of thinking, and we have to, one, solopreneur we can work. If you can run a ration shop alone and eventually add 1 or 2 people and grow it as a thing. Similarly, as a solopreneur, as a gig worker, first you start figuring out what you're good at. You might be good at writing, you might be good at making designs, you might be good at certain tasks. If you are trained and you have right qualification, you know how to manage your own set of clients. And while all these global websites are available to give you work, I mean, it's really highly appreciable with what government has done right now. So gig worker you'll only get to see more gig workers coming out, because Gen Z has a very different mindset. They don't want to be stuck in a 12 hours job or 10 hours job.
Or traffic.
Absolutely, traffic. I mean, that's one thing where hybrid work still is ideal, where if people are sincere and they can be honest to their own work, they can work from home, they can be more productive. And if we are in that transition where eventually one generation will come which can, in all honesty, sit at home and deliver 100% on time, before time, with high quality. I think gig workers definitely would be playing big role in future.
So with that question, we've seen this hybrid culture, we've seen this work from home culture, right? I think COVID actually good in that case. I mean, not to say where shift because shift was pushed, really fast, right? So, and we're also seeing some technologies right now that sooner or later the traditional laptops and the screens will be replaced with virtual realities or the AR VR, right? So how far right now we are with that technology?
I don't think very far off, because especially developed countries are already getting exposed to it now. Maybe in a couple of years that tech will become very common with meta glasses coming in.
It's all about the price.
It's just the price point. It's just that situation where in 20 cell phones, like smartphones, absolutely. From cell phone to smartphone, how we moved between 12, 13, and now everyone is like having it as a device. Next 8-10 years would be that ways. AI is becoming cheaper, hardware is becoming cheaper, and we'll eventually get to a stage and maybe.
So basically these two, ChatGPT and DeepSeek fight manandariki manchide.
As a consumer, there's always a win that we study in management. Like if big companies compete, the consumer wins for sure.
Wins
we
for
will
sure.
be, as a society, there is definitely plus and minus to balance, but we are winning for sure from that perspective.
So again, come back to a little bit, backward. So we talk about the pressures that these youngsters were taking, the education that they were picking up. Definitely there is a tremendous of mental pressure that they have, even in the colleges or after colleges, or possibly after jobs also, right? Not much of happiness that they are finding out. So as a mentor, I've been seeing that you've been into health side also. It's not just making wealth but also health, right? So what is this concept of shuhari?
So it's a Japanese concept, and I feel mental well-being is one dimension where there are multiple frameworks to deal with it, and tackling pressure is just one part of that whole thing. But coming to Shuhari kind of approach, if I have to just first break it down in simple words, it's a Japanese framework. So if you say beginner, intermediate, and mastery, these are three levels generally that anyone will have. So what they have done in this framework is they say when you start as a beginner, you learn and follow your master. Don't ask questions, just follow what master is saying. And some of these are like our ancient Hindu, all these philosophies that we had and methods, they also say a similar thing. Yeah, that Guru Shishya Parampara was always there. Then second stage is intermediary stage where you have to figure it out. So that is experimentation ideally. In Shuhari, what they say, you break what your master has told. So there are a set of principles given to you. So here you have to follow it and you have to extremely become perfect in this initial stage. Follow your, So at that stage you have to follow your master and just copy and practice it so many times that whatever is said, you can exactly replicate it with that stage. We know it now in and out from that method. In the intermediate stage, what they say is, and I feel this is what we need to bring back in our education. This is such a good question. So in the second stage, what happens? So in this stage, ideally they expect you to break rules, because now you are expert. You learn driving, first stage. Now you know how to drive. Now you will only drive in certain speed breaker, this, that, everything. And then eventually what happens, at one stage you start breaking certain rules and you go beyond limit. You figure out this is how you can cut, this is on you can actually glide, maneuver. You figure out.
So slowly become a mastery.
So third stage is mastery. So the point is, in the intermediate stage, you break the rules of your master. So in Japanese technique, in this particular technique, they say you first become a master yourself. First follow your master completely.
Okay, follow.
Then second, you have to break the rules and figure out, experiment.
Follow, break.
And then third one is become a master yourself.
Mastery.
Because you now know in and out everything. By doing wrong,
Yeah.
by doing something new, you will know what will not work, what will work in the second stage. The third stage, now you will create your own technique. Then again this steps follows, which is you again find your disciple, you give them your technique, they'll follow the 3 steps and then they will evolve the whole process. So this is the technique ideally that they follow.
So which means this brings a question that the youngsters, especially Gen Z, which always has this mindset of instant dopamine, right? And these guys will not take that much of time, especially to learn or experiment and become a mastery. They can quickly learn themselves. So in college states they need to learn and utilize their valuable time there, and then right after they get a job, either in startup or a company, then they experiment and try to learn and then become an entrepreneur. Is it
Absolutely. It's a very good parallel that you're drawn. Ideally, if we can get into that mindset, and even within the jobs, if you don't want to start as an entrepreneur, people who follow a manager, they follow a journey, then they try to figure out what manager is saying, try to do beyond that. They challenge that authority in second phase. Eventually third phase, even Einstein says, when I challenged the authority, I became the authority. So the third phase, you will only become the authority if you have challenged the authority. Challenge in a very positive way. I mean, there are ways of seeing if you don't follow certain things, if you do something better than what is told, you can actually become that new authority. So these are 3 phases for sure people can follow.
So guys, I think we should look into his books, and you can also connect with him, make him as a mentor for sure. His time and your time will be really valuable to learn more concepts like this. So come back on fire questions. So we have a couple of more minutes to finish it up. So I'll start rapid fire questions quickly. So answer would be kind of yes or no, kind of, or a little bit of mixed. So is AI will replace developers' jobs in the future?
Yes.
Okay, so the answer is yes. So you have to figure out how to do what to learn. So next question is India will also have its own AI model like DeepSeek?
Yes.
Okay, and how far?
Very soon.
Okay, great. And can we like justify, like, because I've seen that last time also, Sam Altman asked about this, and that time we don't have answer, and now I think parallelly or indirectly or directly we got that answer from DeepSeek. So what do you think about from India?
India for sure should do it. I always believe you should never rely. We are already over relying on third party technology. Now is the time for this generation to take advantage of it.
So the next third question: what would you do if you become an education minister for any Telugu state? The first one, the first sign.
I'll make education free for everyone.
Okay, great. So when it comes to picking up a career, we always have two options. One, go for a job. The second one is hustle, struggle, and become an entrepreneur. So which one would you choose?
I would
From a younger version of yourself.
absolutely entrepreneurship. I've learned a lot with jobs for sure. It gave me very good exposure, but entrepreneurship.
So okay. So I heard that AI now become kind of agentic AI or kind of automated AI in general word. People started talking about AI can start creating apps as quick as possible. Is it really true?
Yes, in certain contexts it is true.
Like complicated apps.
Complicated apps. So it's like kind of knowledge that you have already fed into these systems of LLM. They're able to generate very decent. I mean, the outputs that you're actually seeing right now in ChatGPT, if you go under the hood and see the explanation, there is a Python code that it is writing. So typically every output that is coming out right now is a piece of code running, and then it is showing you something. So you can imagine doing
It's
it
scary,
already.
no? It's
It is
scary. Cool. So the next last question: are you going to put wealth over health, or vice versa? Which one would you?
No, obviously we should put health over wealth, but ideally we have to balance both.
Okay. So the next one is, what do you suggest for us, for youngsters, especially the books? Any recommendations from the books or the learnings that you came across?
I feel most importantly, I mean, live from other people's experience. That is very easy. Read as many as books, because if we go out of that touch of reading good books, good literature, not just novels for improving language, eventually languages will become little irrelevant because communication platforms will evolve. So your critical thinking, your knowledge, experience of your elder ones, I mean, that is going to be more critical. We have to spend more time with people now in future to learn.
Okay. So last one: what would you suggest for youngsters if you are in your young generation? Let's say, two decades back, and that time you don't have much resources the way how these young Gen Z has resources, like let's say example of internet or the books or anything, right? So that time getting one book is so hard. We have to go to a city, buy it, take back and such. Now we just buy it from online, right? So what would you suggest youngsters if you have such opportunity in your younger version?
Oh, I would, to my own younger self, I would say, make the best out of this time. This time will not come back again. I mean, learn as much as possible. Enjoy this time. You won't have opportunity like this ever. I mean, what we are.
So
So
these
this
guys are watching
absolutely.
that.
So I mean, my request to you all is, this time will not come back for sure. I mean, that's a reality for every generation. But the kind of technology shift we are seeing, the kind of opportunity to not worry about what you don't know, using technology as a backup, you can do phenomenal things. I wish you all luck. You should just be really hungry and foolish, as Steve Jobs says. So just stay hungry, find your passion. It's easy to say find your passion, but reality, what drives you, what makes you happy. Start chasing some of those things. Money will follow, just work hard. I mean, working hard is the primary thing that you need right now. Wish you all luck.
Great. Thank you very much, sir.